There is a seemingly unending stream of controversy and criticism surrounding modern art. There are those who love it, and there are those who hate it. Art is necessary to humanity, and to impose a set of morals upon art in order to deem what is worthy or valuable to society reduces art to a commodity. This method of devaluing art is incompatible with the human condition. So why is modern art so contested? To answer this question, we must first define modern art. The MoMA defines modern art as a rejection of older artistic traditions, including institutions, genres, and techniques. Modern art is not just bananas taped to walls. It was an era of artistic revolution that spanned an entire century. Beginning in 1850 and ending around 1950, the modern art movement included movements such as Impressionism, Cubism, conceptual art, abstract expressionism, Dadaism, and Surrealism, to name a few. Modern art emerged as a response to the dominance of Romanticism and Realism throughout the Western world. In his essay, The Revolutionary Spirit in Modern Art, written in 1932, the modern artist Diego Rivera writes, "In the 19th century, the proletariat was in no position to make an effective economic demand for art products. The demand was all on the part of the bourgeoisie." As Rivera explains, the art that predated the modern art era was created for the pleasure of wealthy members of society. Modern artists, on the other hand, created art that questioned humanity, war, and even art itself. They didn't make art that was solely aesthetically pleasing. Rivera discusses the divisions of art reflected within the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, insinuating to readers that art is inherently political. It is intricately connected to the socio-political conditions of those who make it and those who consume it. Now, often when people critique modern art, they are referring to abstract, conceptual, or otherwise non-traditional forms of art. Conceptual art is the butt of many jokes about modern art. Conceptual art emphasizes the concept behind the art rather than the art's physical form. One of the most well-known conceptual art pieces is Marcel Duchamp's Fountain, created in 1917. Duchamp was a member of the Dadaist art movement. Dadaists emerged in the aftermath of World War I, and while struggling to grapple with their reality, they created art that was just as absurd as war and life itself. Duchamp rejected painting as a form, quote, because it was made for the eye and not the mind, unquote. Critical Inquiry is a journal focused on critical thought, art, and humanities, published by the University of Chicago. In their autumn 2006 issue, they wrote in an article titled Voices Off, Reflections on Conceptual Art, discussing conceptual art's history and importance in the art sphere. While discussing Duchamp's Fountain, the authors write, "The particular significance of the Duchampian ready-made is that it allowed him to leap past old aesthetic questions of craft, medium, and taste. Is it good or bad painting or sculpture? To new questions that were potentially ontological. What is art? Epistemological. How do we know it? And institutional. Who determines it?" Duchamp's Fountain challenged the definition of art, questioning who gets to determine what art is. The Critical Inquiry authors note that Duchamp rejects traditional forms of aesthetics and craft. The Fountain instead focuses on ontological, epistemological, and institutional questions, which align with the ideals of conceptual art. What Duchamp and other Dadaists were getting at with their work is that the war-torn world of the early 20th century was absurd. It was filled with meaningless suffering. Such a reality led them to create art that reflected that reality, absurd, painful, and meaningless. Ironically, critics of the Fountain viewed the piece as fundamentally unartistic, imposing their own definition of art onto the work and falling victim to the trap that Duchamp had created. Joseph Kosuth was a conceptual artist who created the piece One in Three Chairs in 1965. One in Three Chairs begs the question, which representation of the chair is the most accurate, and by association, which one can be considered art? What is art? Now, it's possible that modern or conceptual art, such as One in Three Chairs, is completely irrelevant to the general public. It relies heavily on concepts that are generally only taught to the educated, wealthy, or otherwise upper class members of society. There is a very valid argument that modern or conceptual art has abandoned its connection to the middle-class people from which it was born. Isaac Kaplan of Artsy, an online art marketplace, writes, "The self-reflective underpinnings of Kosuth's work run dangerously close to reinforcing art as the domain of an elite few with the requisite knowledge. Art is supposed to be experienced, but what happens when that experience is reserved only for those with extensive training in the arts, when art is only seen by curators and collectors, when it is only sold in closed auctions or stowed away in modern art museums? What happens when the general public fails to understand art because art is no longer being created for their eyes?" Rivera touched on this in his essay when he wrote, "By the collaboration of the artists who have come out of the proletariat and those who sympathize and are in alliance with the proletariat, there should be created an art which is definitely and in every way superior to the art which is produced by the artists of the bourgeoisie. Art is a communal effort, and when art becomes controlled by a singular class or group, it is necessary to reclaim the production of art. That is what created modern art, and that is what has happened time and time again throughout history, and will continue to happen as we proceed into the future. If you feel that there is not a single work of modern, contemporary, or conceptual art that speaks to you in any way, I implore you to look to the art of the past, to look at the niches of today, but do not discredit modern art as a whole. Art is not simply a showcase of beauty, it is the exploration of the human condition. To define art by what is beautiful, what is technically superior, is to strip art of its meaning. No one can lay claim to art's definition, the meaning of art, or what holds value in our society. And I am sure that if you take the time to truly sit with the modern art that you feel is worthless, pointless, or simply unartistic, if you wrestle with the questions and emotions it raises in you, I'm sure that you will glean some sort of insight. Let your notions be challenged, let your questions go unanswered, and let yourself simply experience art.